If you're using AI to track your calories, you'd hope it was accurate, right? Well, in my latest YouTube video, I investigated how accurate AI calorie tracking actually is. I used Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT to see how close to the actual calories they could get when they were given a photo and a description, and a photo, a description, and measurements. If you've not seen that video yet, check that video out first and then come back to this. Because in this video, I'm going to be covering how AI actually works when it comes to tracking calories, the pros and cons of using AI to track your calories, and if you do want to use it, how to use it so it doesn't completely lead you astray. So let's get into it. So how does AI calorie tracking actually work? Well, when you take a picture of your food and upload it to something like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, it will look at the picture and it will look for things like textures, it will look at what food's in there, it will look for clues on the cooking method, and it will try to decipher what's actually in the picture. It will also look for things to give reference to the portion sizes, for example, a fork or a glass, to see how big something actually is. And it's important to recognize that the camera angle or the zoom that you have in a photo might distort this. So the picture that you take will impact the portion size that it predicts that you have. And if it can't do that, it will go to the averages. For example, if you are in the UK, it will look at the average serving of pasta, the average serving of rice, and give you an estimate based off of that. From there, it will look into the calorie and the nutrition databases that it has, the knowledge that it's already got, and basically apply the two things together. Now, obviously with things like this, the more detail that you can give it, the more certainty it can have when it comes to its predictions. And this was definitely something that I found when I did the investigation. When I looked at the photos, the measurements, and the descriptions, one of the AIs got within 4 calories for the full day of eating. But things like this are not all sunshine and rainbows because the AI doesn't know what it doesn't know. For example, if there's a hidden food in there, in this case I had an omelette and there was cheese inside the omelette, but it couldn't see the cheese. It makes it a lot harder to make a prediction. Or if I used oil in the cooking process, that would affect the total number of calories. So when it comes to AI, you've got to give it as much detail as possible, otherwise you're kind of swinging in the dark. And if there are hidden ingredients in there, or it's not been cooked in the same way that it's predicted, that could cost you hundreds of calories, which could be the difference between you being in a calorie deficit and you not being in a calorie deficit, and therefore it wouldn't be a very useful tool for weight loss. Now, all that being said, if you are considering using AI as a calorie tracking tool, then I think there are some things that you want to, well, take into account. First off, as with any use of AI, it should be complementing your knowledge, not supplementing it. Calorie tracking is a tool, and I think for a lot of people it serves as an educational point, especially when you first start off. It allows for you to understand portion sizes and how many calories you're actually eating. It allows you to take account of what is affecting the total number of calories in a food. Physically having to take stock of how much cheese you're putting into a meal, which is always more cheese than you think, will affect the number of calories that you are having, and therefore will make you think twice about the amount of cheese, or maybe even just consider making a few changes. That being said, I'm a big advocate for making sure you get a decent amount of cheese on whatever you're having.
I want all of you, forever. You and me.
So just make sure it fits within your calories. But anyway, the point to make here is if you want to make long-term changes to your nutrition, it's useful to know why you're doing the things that you're doing, or the kind of changes that you would need to make to have long-term success with your nutrition. Therefore, tracking's actually a useful tool, and physically doing the work will make it a lot easier. And if you know what portion sizes are, you know how many grams of protein are in things, how many calories are in things, it will make it a lot easier to make decisions even when you're not tracking. Now, much like AI, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know the kind of mistakes AI could make, then it might just lead AI to making the mistakes and you taking what it said as being gospel. Going back to oil, for example, if you don't understand what a portion is and you just go pour it into your pan willy-nilly, you could end up with 100 extra calories in there without even realizing it, heck, even 500 extra calories. And if you don't know that you've done that and the AI doesn't know that you've done that, those calories could end up being missed. So just make sure if you are using it, you are also educating yourself. So the next thing that we want to consider is, what does AI actually know? Now, AI is trained on the knowledge that currently exists, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the knowledge that currently exists, but we're still building on it, and we might not know absolutely everything. Now, if you are aware of how kind of research works, you'll know that there are gaps and deficits within research, so therefore we don't necessarily have all of the knowledge and all of the things that are true. There are things that we believe to be true, but they're not necessarily 100% fact. And there might be caveats and nuance to that. Actually, there will definitely definitely be caveats and nuance to a lot of things that are said. We very much have a perception of nutrition that is whitewashed and is very much within a Western-centric point of view of what is healthy. And therefore, all of that information gets fed back to the AI, so it's only ever trained on the information that's currently there. And until we have an equal quantity and quality of the research that's been done for each of these subgroups, we kind of can't say this is going to be absolute truth. And without going into any more of a philosophical argument, it's really important to recognize that the AI models can only learn from what we give it. It can't create new information in that sense. Then when we start to think, well, is the knowledge that we have so far drenched in diet culture? Where has diet culture influenced this? Where have other agendas influenced this? It's really then important to go, well, this information might not be 100% true. Now, these are absolutely huge topics, and without going into any more detail in this, I don't think I can truly do them justice. So I just want you to take that kind of point on board that we don't know what we don't know, and AI only knows as much as it knows.
But see, they don't know that we know that they know.
Now, the next thing that I want you to consider is that AI will tell you what you want to hear. The way that it's been designed is to keep you on the app, is to keep you using.
Sounds to me like you have an addiction.
And because it's trained to be helpful and agreeable, it will therefore give you information that you want to hear. So if you ask a loaded question, even if you don't realize that it's a loaded question, it might agree with you just because it wants to keep you using the app. So really, when you're using tools like this, make sure you put your critical thinking hat on, because it's going to be something that you need to do in order to actually get a useful thing out of it. And again, this comes back to the point of if you don't know what you don't know what bad advice is. I think as the next thing to mention, it's really important to just think morally, ethically, and environmentally, how do you feel about AI? Again, this is a huge topic and not something that I'm going to go into detail with, but I do recommend that you check out someone on Instagram called I Am Shay-O. She did a podcast with Grace Beverly a while back about AI and how we can be using AI, and she's someone who's currently studying it from a historian's perspective. She has some really interesting perspectives on AI, talks a lot about it, and also is someone who is aware of the environmental impacts and is talking about kind of what you can do about that as well. So I'd recommend that you check her out on social media as well. Now, the final thing that I would like for you to consider before we go any further on how you can actually use this is just that AI gets things wrong. I asked it to calculate some numbers for me, and even basic adding up it was getting wrong. I had to literally double check things in my head and go, actually that doesn't sound right, and call it out on that and make it redo the maths. So just to bring this whole point home, make sure you use your brain first, and AI is there to complement what you're doing. It's not there to replace it. So all that being said, if you do want to use AI to make your calorie tracking journey easier, when are the times that I'd use it and how would I do it effectively? Well, I think probably one of the best use cases for it is using it when you can't track. Say, for example, you've gone out to a restaurant and you've taken a picture of your meal. You can then send that to your AI of choice and ask it how many calories are in that. The more detail that you can put in, the better. So if you can tell it portion sizes, if you can tell it how greasy the food was, if you can tell it how much of it that you ate, that will give you a good enough idea, or an idea that would be better than you not knowing at all, on how many calories are actually in it. And therefore, that would be more useful for tracking than not having that information at all. This also might be useful if you're going to a buffet and you want to build your plate. So whenever you go to a buffet, one thing that I would recommend is that you build your own plate so that you have a meal that has protein in, vegetables, and some sort of carbohydrates as well. If you put all that meal together, you put it all on one plate, you then snap a picture of the food that you're about to eat. Much easier to track. You're not going to know the exact numbers, however, AI will be able to give you a good enough estimate. But if you are at home, you are weighing out your meal and you just can't be asked to stick it into your calorie tracking app, go get a grip. Sometimes it's useful to add a little bit more friction and do these things, rather than just inputting it all into ChatGPT and hoping for the best. Now, the next way to use it effectively, and I've already kind of alluded to this, is giving it as much detail as possible. Think about how oily the food was. Are there any non-visible ingredients in there? Is there a food in there that you can taste but otherwise can't see? Is there a description on the menu of what's in there? Can you add that information in as well? But the more information you give it, the better. The next consideration to make is you still have to make the decent nutrition choices. I think with calorie tracking in general, we can sometimes get into this idea that you can eat whatever you want as long as it fits within those calories. And that's kind of true, but that's not necessarily the best way to eat for overall health. You still need to be thinking about getting protein in, you still need to be thinking about eating plants, you still need to be thinking about eating eating foods that make you feel good. The next thing to think about is the more that you use it, the more errors there potentially will be. Say each meal is 50 calories under, across the day that equals 150 calories out, which doesn't sound like much, but across the week is going to add up and is going to start to eat into your calorie deficit. And again, the more detail that you put into it, the fewer errors there are going to be. However, my argument would be, if you're going to put that level of detail into it, why can't you just put that into your calorie tracking app? And the final thing to note here is that I don't think AI is a quick fix, but I do think that AI is here to stay. You're going to start to see it integrate into your life way more than I think anyone's anticipating. As big tech companies start to innovate and use this even more, I think we'll start to see it popping up in a few different areas that we've maybe not even thought of yet. I am cautiously optimistic about the use of AI in the future and the use of AI calorie tracking. However, I do think it's really important to remember that you first and foremost are a human, and you need to also think about the things like breaking the patterns of emotional eating, understanding what foods keep you full, and understanding what foods make you feel good. You need to learn the basics because you've got to put food into your mouth. AI can't do that for you. Just remember, it's a tool, but it's not the only tool that you can use or should use. There are lots of different options out there for how you get good nutrition. This might just be something that you can use to complement your journey. So if you've enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about losing weight and keeping it off through building better habits, more tools and techniques that you can use, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And if you want to keep hanging out, then I recommend that you check out this video next, where I talk about what I've done to manage my cravings.